From the very beginning, Jess was just an easy child. I think we put her in timeout once and put her in the corner, and she got a book and started reading, and I said, well, your timeout is up, and she looked at me and says, well, I'm not finished with the book, you know, so she just, I don't know, it was just easy. We have so many cards and letters and things that she wrote to us over the years. She was the perfect daughter for a very long time. She overdosed before her 16th birthday and was on life support for 6 or 7 days. And that was when we really realized she was in trouble.
Today, 91 more Americans will die from an opioid overdose. More people now die from overdoses than from traffic accidents. It is an epidemic. By the end of this week, in Arizona alone, about 200 people will overdose on opioids. More than 20 will lose their lives. Jess survived her first overdose, but she didn't stop using the drugs that almost killed her.
Morphine and Valium and oxycodone and basically anything they could get is what they were doing until the black tar came along, and then that was it. Once Jess discovered heroin, there was nothing else in her life, nothing.
I think it was like 870 BC were the first documents to show that people would take these and they would actually reach sort of what they called a higher state. And so we call it today euphoria, in which a person will feel good. When we do things that are exciting even in life or eating food, we get a little bit of dopamine, and that's our reward pathway. Opiates override this. Of course, now we don't need the food or anything else, we just need the opiate to get the dopamine release, and that's why they can become very addictive.
Once opioids hijack the brain's reward system, the brain adapts and starts making less of its own dopamine. As time goes on, opioid users need more and more of the drug just to feel normal. And that's when things get dangerous.
And at higher doses, it actually sort of decreases your own personal drive of breathing, and by decreasing that breathing, of course, that's how most people end up overdosing and dying.
Does that hurt?
It hurt. I could feel it. Right there, I can feel it, definitely.
Okay. And that made the pain worse?
Yes.
And that's the pain you're complaining about?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, I actually remember when I was in medical school and we got lectures about pain management. One of the messages we were getting at the time is, don't worry, if a patient is in a pain, they will not get addicted to opioids if they are legitimately in pain. But that's because we didn't know better. It started in the mid to late 80s when certain pharmaceutical companies pushed for opioids really hard. I'm sure there was a component about just relieving the pain, but we cannot also ignore or completely discount the financial gains from selling opioids.
Prescription opioid sales quadrupled from 1999 to 2014, earning billions for pharmaceutical companies. BJ spent most of those years battling cancer and benefited from opioids' power to stop pain. Then she watched the drugs destroy her daughter's life.
Some of the things she's chosen to do, I would have killed somebody if they had done them to her, but she did them to herself. There's nobody to kill, you know. These are some of the things that Jess loved growing up. When I look at it, I see a young, happy, vibrant young woman doing all these things from the time she was born, and that person doesn't exist anymore.
BJ now has stage 4 bone cancer. In 2017, she spent more than 6 months out of contact with Jess, unsure if she'd live to see her daughter again. Then, one day in late summer, she got a call.
I wanted to know she was still alive. was the big thing, and the second thing was I needed help. Couldn't wait any longer. So she's always been there. I just sucked it up, call one last time. I've been here 8 days. Prior to that, I was at one friend's house for 2 days, camping in the backyard. I was at a friend's trailer for about 4 days before that. And prior to that, I was staying behind an abandoned building at Grant and Swan for about 2.5 weeks. Right now, I'm trying to get into residential treatment. So fingers crossed, we'll see.
Without opioids or adequate treatment, Jess faces the dangers of withdrawal.
It affects the GI tract, it affects the temperature regulation of your body. The autonomic nervous system kind of regulates many of these things that we don't think about. So it just makes you kind of go through this process where you feel like you almost want to die.
I was sleeping on a sidewalk, 104-degree weather. I mean, rolling over and throwing up right there, being too weak to stand up. Even now, I still shake sometimes. My thoughts race. I have a hard time grabbing the simplest of words and putting a sentence together. And insomnia is kicking in, and that's the worst part. Last night was the first time I've slept in 4 days. They say you have to hit rock bottom. Yeah, I nailed mine real hard. That parachute did not open, and that sidewalk was my rock bottom. I've done this more than half my life. I have nothing to show for it but a criminal record and nothing. I want a life before it's too late.
In the grip of this epidemic, several states have declared public health emergencies, including Arizona.
We are back now with a deep dive into one of the most serious crises facing people in this country.
In opioid
people
addiction.
die every day from drug
Not coming
overdoses.
from the streets,
with more
but
than
from
30
medicine cabinets all over America.
Training and tracking requirements have changed to keep better tabs on the crisis. New guidelines encourage physicians to curb their opioid prescriptions, and some new laws force them to.
We're not trained to be detectives, we're trained to heal. But we find ourselves in a situation that we have to take on that role. So it's a balance that we're trying to achieve between relieving pain and the welfare of the entire community.
It's unclear if these new steps to fight the opioid epidemic will be enough, especially if funding for the public health programs that are taking those steps gets cut.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's taking over. There are people that I've come across in their 50s or 60s or 70s that are using heroin. For $30 on the street, you know, for granny with, you know, arthritis, I mean, that could last her 3 to 4 weeks. There's no age, there's no race, there's no gender, there's no bounds with this drug.
How can we have this kind of problem and not address it? They're just walking into something that's so dark. I mean, you just have no idea how dark it is.